Arsenal delivered a performance of near-flawless tactical execution to overcome Bayern Munich, a victory that emphatically snapped the German giants' impressive unbeaten streak. This match served as the ultimate demonstration of the strategic principles that have fueled their dominant campaign, a masterclass in controlled aggression and systematic fluidity. The blueprint for this success was laid out in two distinct phases, an ingenious pressing mechanism designed to lure opponents into fatal traps, and an attacking structure of such remarkable flexibility that it consistently deformed Bayern's defensive shape. Often resulting in the surreal sight of both holding midfielders operating as de facto centre-backs while rotations swirled across the pitch. The statistical profile of the match underscores this dominance. Arsenal emerged as the clearly superior side, registering a higher expected goals value, more attempts on goal, and a momentum graph that leaned heavily in their favour for the majority of the contest. Interestingly, this supremacy did not translate into monopolising the ball. Bayern Munich still saw more of the possession. However, this fact only serves to highlight Arsenal's tactical maturity, as they were arguably at their most lethally effective precisely when they were out of possession. The foundation of this defensive resilience, which has become one of the most formidable in European football, is an aggressive, man-oriented pressing system. While this is a philosophy shared by many elite teams, Arsenal has refined it with a subtle yet devastating wrinkle that sets them apart. The common directive in man-marking systems is immediate engagement, closing down your direct opponent with relentless speed. Arsenal, however, employs a more patient and calculated approach that methodically herds the opposition into predetermined zones of the pitch. The initial phase of their press is not about frantic challenges, but rather about intelligently shadowing forward passing lanes, subtly coaxing the opponent's build-up into specific, often congested areas. This trapping zone isn't exclusively the wide channels. On numerous occasions, Arsenal will deliberately funnel play directly through the central corridor. Once the ball and the opponent in possession are successfully guided into this designated area, the true press is triggered with explosive intent. Any subsequent forward pass is met with an aggressive, physical close down, with every Arsenal player understanding their primary objective: to prevent the receiving player from turning and facing the goal. This principle was applied universally. Whether the pass was directed out wide to Bayern's advancing fullbacks or into the centre, where players like Jamal Musiala and Harry Kane routinely dropped deep to receive, these targets were instantly swarmed. The only feasible escape route under such suffocating pressure was a retreating pass, either back to the central defenders or, ideally, all the way back to the goalkeeper, Manuel Neuer. It is this specific backward pass that acts as the ultimate trigger for the entire Arsenal unit to spring forward in a synchronised, aggressive surge. The nearest attacker immediately presses the goalkeeper, while the defensive line pushes up in unison, compressing the play into the opponent's half and effectively setting a devastating offside trap. A perfect illustration of this sequence occurred in the first half. Bayern defender Date Upamecano had time on the ball in a deep position. Arsenal's Leandro Trossard began a slow, measured advance, while Kai Havertz intelligently positioned himself to block the passing lane into the central midfield. This subtle positioning effectively forced the pass out to the flank, where Leroy Sané received it. The moment the ball arrived at Sané's feet, Arsenal's young midfielder slewed it upon him, applying immediate pressure and forcing another backward pass, this time to Neuer. To Neuer. Like a well-rehearsed orchestra, the entire Arsenal team then launched their coordinated press. Trossard continued his run to close down Neuer. Declan Rice had followed Musiala to the edge of the box, and William Saliba was pushed aggressively forward to mark Harry Kane. Neuer, finding all short options eliminated, was compelled to launch a hopeful long ball, which Arsenal comfortably dealt with, neutralising the threat entirely. This meticulously drilled pressing shape was the source of several promising opportunities in the first half, particularly from intercepting these ambitious central passes. One such interception saw Seb Dertz pounce on a loose ball, though his subsequent shot was scuffed wide. However, it was in the second period where the system truly began to pay dividends, with Arsenal repeatedly winning possession in advanced areas and instantly transitioning into attack with overwhelming numbers. The sheer velocity of Arsenal's counterattacks in these moments means that any turnover can instantly become a nightmare scenario for the opposition. The decisive goal that made it 2-1 was a textbook example of these principles in action. Bayern attempted to play a penetrative pass through the central midfield, which was read and intercepted by the alert Declan Rice. In a flash, Arsenal had multiple players breaking beyond Bayern's defensive line. The fresh legs of substitute Gabriel Martinelli produced a brilliant driving run into the space, and with his very first touch of the game, he delivered an inch-perfect cross for the arriving Havertz, who powered a header into the net for his first Arsenal goal. From a defensive perspective, this strategic shape from Arsenal nearly perfectly neutralised Bayern Munich's attempts to build from the back. Yet, even during the periods when Arsenal were forced into a deeper, more structured defensive block, there was a noticeable absence of a frantic, all-out press on the Bayern back line. The patience remained. The trigger was still the pass into a more advanced player. The moment the ball was played into the feet of a midfielder or out to a winger, the Arsenal players would spring into action, applying concerted pressure, forcing the ball backward, and then using that retreating pass as the signal to push up and squeeze the space. This approach worked exceptionally well in stifling Bayern's attempts to play through the lines and made it incredibly difficult for a player of Harry Kane's calibre to find the pockets of space in which he is so devastating. One of Bayern's preferred tactical patterns involves overloading the opposition's midfield, often leaving their own centre-backs in possession, but with few progressive options. Arsenal remained completely unfazed by these rotations, content to let Bayern circulate the ball laterally in non-threatening areas, but instantly ready to pounce the moment they attempted to progress it further up the pitch. However, no system is without its inherent risks. The primary vulnerability of this cautious approach is that by not immediately pressuring the central defenders, the opposition is granted time to lift their heads and pick out long, diagonal passes to wingers, making runs in behind defensive line. High defensive line. This exact scenario led to Bayern's equalising goal. Joshua Kimmich found himself in possession between the lines, with Arsenal players hesitating to commit, waiting for a shorter pass. This momentary pause allowed Kimmich the time to loft a perfect ball over the top for the run of Serge Gnabry, who caught the Arsenal backline off guard. His subsequent cutback pass found the 17-year-old talent Leonard Carl, who calmly slotted home the equaliser. Far! This particular flank proved to be Arsenal's most consistent area of vulnerability, with Lewis Skelly exposed on a couple of occasions against the pace and trickery of Alphonso Davies and Carl. Transitioning from their defensive organisation, Arsenal's ideas in possession are equally as fascinating. The team has evolved far beyond rigid, predictable structures where players are confined to specific zones on the pitch. From the back, Arsenal retain a direct element. Goalkeeper David Raya frequently launches long passes towards the forward line. Even with a relatively low success rate, these balls are not merely hopeful clearances. The entire team is primed to attack the second ball, turning what seems like a lost cause into a sustained, attacking sequence. This philosophy means they are not a side, obsessed with monopolising possession for its own sake. In this match, they were outperformed by Bayern in virtually every passing category, a trend that is reflected in their overall Premier League season, where they rank outside the top 4 for accurate passes per match. Yet this relative lack of possession does not hinder their ability to construct intelligent and dangerous build-up play. There were a host of intriguing rotations on display, making Arsenal's shape incredibly difficult to track. Frequently, either Declan Rice or Zamana Mandi would drop deep to operate between or alongside the central defenders, at times fully assuming the roles of the two centre-backs themselves, which allowed the likes of Jurrien Timber and Gianluca Moscarda to push wide. So it's effectively creating a system where both fullbacks could advance simultaneously. In the final third, the movement of Martin Odegaard was pivotal as he consistently drifted into pockets of space in the right inside channel. This dynamic approach to build-up naturally creates two distinct passing triangles on each side of the pitch, on the right with Timber and Bukayo Saka interchanging, and on the left with Havertz, Skelly and the introduced Martinelli. A fundamental and defining movement in Arsenal's attacking phase is the behaviour of the two holding midfielders once the ball is progressed. They do not remain in conservative, protective positions. Instead, they aggressively attack the space ahead, driving forward to create numerical overloads in the final third. A prime example from the first half saw Declan Rice involved in the build-up, deep in his own half. The instant the ball was played forward into an advanced area, Rice was already on the move, sprinting to join the attack and add an extra body that the Bayern defence was forced to contend with. This constant motion means Arsenal rarely settles into a recognisable, static attacking shape like a 3-2-2-5 or a 2-4-4. The focus is less on forming a perfect picture and more on ensuring that the player in possession always has an immediate, dynamic passing option, with at least one runner simultaneously threatening the space behind the defensive line. A glorious chance for Declan Rice in the 61st minute perfectly encapsulates this philosophy. After a period of sustained possession, Arsenal's structure had morphed into an unconventional form. Rice found himself in the left-back position. Lewis Skelly and Zoumana Mandi were the holding midfielders, and the striker was occupying a right-sided midfield space. Moscarda then played an ambitious ball over the top towards Martinelli, who expertly knocked it down into the path of the onrushing Rice. The English midfielder, having started from a deep position, had sprinted beyond both Davies and Josip Stanisic and was desperately unlucky not to score, his effort narrowly missing the target. This fluidity makes Arsenal a perpetual, unpredictable threat. Furthermore, opponents are granted no respite even when the ball is out of play, as set pieces remain a fundamental and ruthlessly efficient weapon in Arsenal's arsenal. Specifically, their trademark in swinging deliveries into the 6-yard box provoke sheer panic and chaos. It is a tactic that has been honed over several seasons, and no team has yet discovered a consistently reliable method to counter it. This proficiency from dead ball situations adds another layer of menace, making Arsenal feel truly dangerous from almost any restart. While this victory over a European giant like Bayern Munich is a monumental achievement, the relentless nature of the modern football calendar offers little time for celebration. With a crucial Premier League encounter against a direct rival like Chelsea zooming day, the Ourette on the horizon. A match that will demand an equally sophisticated and forceful tactical performance.